Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's virtual PNR planning meeting. As usual, I need to run through various points of procedure regarding virtual planning meetings before we move to the agenda. Today's meeting is being held under the virtual meetings regulations using Microsoft Teams. All committee decisions will be as valid as decisions made at a physical meeting held in the town hall. For those members of the public watching the meeting on the YouTube link, PNR committee members often use more than one screen during the meeting to look at committee papers, which can mean that a member is not looking at the camera at any given moment. Today's meeting is being streamed live on the internet, and a recorded version will be on the Council's website within 48 hours. As chairman, I can confirm public written statements will be read out by a council officer. The planning committee consists of 13 members, adjusted to accord with political balance, agreed by all the group leaders and the chief executive. Please confirm you are leaving the meeting in regard to a declared disclosable pecuniary interest. Compliance is essential to comply with the law. An officer will invite you back into the meeting following determination of the agenda item. Voting procedure. Please use the chat function when proposing or seconding a motion. State clearly what you are moving. This will aid the general public following the planning process online. Voting on applications will be carried out by roll call. The legal officer will call out each councillor's name in alphabetical order. The vote will be taken on the basis that you have heard the entire debate on the application. Please state if your vote is for the motion or against the motion, or if you wish to abstain. This will ensure the vote is correctly recorded. Voting on matters of procedure, such as confirmation of the minutes, will be undertaken using the chat function. Please ensure all mobiles are switched off and your IT devices and phones are muted when you are not speaking. Hazel, please can you undertake the roll call for today's meeting?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Bridger.
Present.
Councillor Bryant.
Present.
Councillor Cherry. Councillor Cole.
Present.
Councillor Crew.
Here.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley.
Present.
Councillor Cronolly.
Present.
Councillor Harley.
Present.
Councillor Haverson.
Present.
Councillor Leigh Morgan.
Present.
Councillor Payne.
Present.
Councillor Solomon.
Present.
Councillor Westwood.
Present.
And the officers who are attending today's meeting are Richard Kent, Simon Exley, Louise Grover, James Wigmore from Development Environment, Place Directorate, Sue Buck, Mike Riggle, Michelle Chesterman, Hazel Brinton from Corporate Services. That finalises the roll call, Chairman.
Thank you. Agenda item 1, public speaking, and we have just one address to be read out by an officer. And that address is in connection with agenda item 6, erection of 4 buildings, 1 for storage and distribution, and 3 for leisure uses at Puxton Park, Hewish. Mr. Alistair Mead supports the proposal, and his address will be read out by Michelle Chesterman.
Thank you, Chairman. The site is a former hard standing and storage area where we have stored stone and landscaping goods. Pictures showing that it is not a greenfield site have been provided to the planning officer. The new building's drop-off zone is 23 metres from existing buildings and is therefore closely connected and in keeping with existing infrastructure. We are already performing the majority of the activities proposed for these buildings at Puxton Park, but in uninsulated agricultural barns which are not fit for purpose. We present nativity plays, phobia nights, Halloween nights, dance classes and exercise classes, etc. We want to expand the dance side of the business by doing a joint venture with Bellatrix, a local hip-hop dance school. Bella, an 18-year-old entrepreneur and dance teacher, currently cannot find enough availability in the local area to teach her dance classes, as she needs a sizable venue with an installed sprung dance floor, of which there is one locally big enough, and they cannot give her more sessions. The limited availability is restricting the growth of her business and making it difficult for her to continue. A number of her existing customers already visit Puxton Park, so there are plenty of linked trips. The gym we are proposing is not a normal gym. It's called Natural Training and is aimed at everyone from youngsters to elderly and does not involve pumping iron. The building will be a base for the fitness activities and will also include a Segway circuit. Furthermore, the outside space, including our farmland and nearby droves and footpaths, will be an additional space for running around, pulling tyres and throwing hay bales in the summer. Therefore, this isn't actually a conventional gym, but a place for people to come and get healthy with the aid of the outside natural environment, something that cannot be accommodated in a town. The general consultees, Internal Drainage Board, Environmental Agency, NSC, Highways, have no objections to the plans. No local residents have objected, and Puxton Parish Council have no objections and stated to welcome the increased local employment opportunities. There is no ecological harm created by the barns, and we will plant many new trees and hedges. We will have solar PV on the roofs, and this application will create 12 new jobs. The planning officer stated that we are not a sustainable site. This is completely unfounded, as we have a regular bus service going past our front gate every hour, used by many of our staff, customers and students. We are approximately 3k from a mainline train station, and we employ over 100 people on site. To conclude, I hope you can support this application. Statement ends, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 2, apologies. Hazel.
Apologies, Chairman. We have no apologies and just one substitution. That's Councillor Havison for Councillor McQuillan. Councillor Cherry has now joined the meeting.
Thank you. Item 3, declaration of disclosable pecuniary interests. Hazel, anything on chats?
Nothing in chat, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 4, minutes of the 14th of October 2020 to approve as a correct record. Are there any comments using the chat function?
Nothing in chat, Chairman.
Okay, in which case all members support the motion and that is carried. Item 5, matters referred by Council, the Executive, other committees, there are none. Item 6, application 20/P/0701/FUL, erection of 4 buildings, 1 building for storage and distribution and 3 buildings to be used for leisure uses at Puxton Park, Cowslip Lane, Hewish. Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope members can hear me okay. We're going to run through the slide. The first slide the members can see is the area of the line of the planning application site. Immediately to the top of the red line is the main entrance to Puxton Park and the shop area. Slightly above it to the left hand side is the general car parking area, and immediately to the bottom of it is a lane which is called Old Barn Lane, and just on the sort of right hand side below it there's a little building, and that building is a nursery which is called I think Ball's Barn, which was converted from a barn to a nursery. Next slide, please. This is a general location plan. On the left-hand side as the screen, as you're looking at it, you can see the thick line of the motorway going from north to south, and to the west of the motorway is the edge of Weston-super-Mare, and then along the mid, just above the side, is the A370, and over on the right hand side is Congsbury, and to the north Yatton. Next slide, please. This and shows the application site, the Puxton Park complex around it. And if members look, they can see the drive that links from the car park area of the farm up to the A370, which is on the left-hand side, where it joins the main junction. That's referred to in the papers as the distance from bus stops on the A370 to the site, and the pedestrians have to walk along the driveway to the main complex. Next slide, please. This is the proposed layout of the site, showing the 4 buildings which are grouped together. To the south of the bottom area is a service yard that will provide servicing in at the rear of the buildings. To the north and in front of them is a car parking area, and also to the right hand side is another car parking area. To the south of them there is a hedgerow, and then below that is Bull's Bar Lane. Next slide, please. This is a landscaping area which will show the proposed areas that will be grassed, and there will be planting within those grassed areas. Next slide, please. This is typical of what the buildings would look like. That's the top left-hand side is the front entrance with a canopy over an entrance doorway and 2 windows. On top right is the rear elevation with a roller shutter door, which would be serviced from the proposed service yard. And then there are, in the middle one, elevations are windows showing what it would look like on one side, and the bottom one would be no windows on the other side. Next slide, please. That's a floor plan showing layout of each buildings that would have a small kitchen area inside it and a WC. Next slide, please. These are illustrative drawings showing what proposed buildings would look like. There is no update sheet for members. If we can go back to the location site, Richard.
Thank you.
We're just waiting for the plans to load. The report explains the application is for 4 buildings and to be used for B8 storage and distribution use, and the other 3 buildings to be used for indoor sport, recreation or fitness. The report that members have got explains the consideration of the planning application and refers to the suitability of the site for the proposed uses. In particular, it says in the development that the proposed storage use is acceptable in planning terms. Ancillary uses that are to be used in connection with the Puxton Park area were also considered to be suitable, but other uses such as the proposed dance studio, indoor trampoline are not ancillary to the attraction. It is considered that because of the location of the site, that these uses are not acceptable, and contrary to policy DM 69. If we show the plan that's on the screen now, it shows the location of the site. That explains the distance along the main drive from the A370 is a considerable distance for pedestrians to walk to the site. In 2016, there was an appeal where planning permission had been refused for change of use of offices on the first floor of the main building to a children's nursery, and that appeal was dismissed, and the inspector referred the distance pedestrians would have to walk to the site from the A370. Again, that's referred to in the committee report. I think members have managed to read the report and understand the arguments. So the application is recommended for refusal. The first refusal reason relates to the use of the building, and that the buildings being for the dance studio, indoor trampoline and gym would be contrary to policy DM69, policy CS1 and CS33. The flooding is refusal reason number 2, that this is a high flood risk area and it's not been demonstrated that that use is acceptable in that area. And the third reason for refusal is on the character of the area, particularly Barn 4, which has been sited close to Balls Barn Lane and the impact on that. If I would say just one thing in the comments that Mr. Mead put forward in his reporting sphere, he does refer to the gym being primarily for Segway and for outdoor activities, running around, pulling tires, rails in the sun, that kind of thing. These uses will be acceptable, but what is proposed for you is a building to undertake these uses. So I think whilst the outdoor gym would be a suitable use there, what the planning objection is to the siting of the building, and that wouldn't prevent its use for an indoor gym. Thank you, Chairman. I'll let members ask any questions and debate.
Thank you. Councillor Harley.
You're muted, Anne. You need to come off mute. Anne.
Anne, you're muted.
Anne.
Muted.
You're muted.
Okay.
Right, I'm not muted now. Right, thank you, Chairman. I would like to recommend approval. So do I have a seconder?
Yes, I second that, Anne. Mike Solomon. I'll second
Mike
that.
Solomon. Right. Chairman, in the last 14 years, I've seen the development of Puxton Park. Development is something I think that we in North Somerset should be proud of. Like so many farmers, in order that their farming business could survive, they were forced to diversify. And this is how Puxton Park was born, not on a whim, but on proper research, in contacting people as to what they would like to see materialise at Puxton Park. And the ideas that came from the public is how Puxton Park is today. The family did not want to see some theme park, but something suitable to the area. And the public wishes, and seeing and being able to touch actual animals and mix with them, seeing where milk comes from, all sorts of things. And out of this came the farm shop and restaurant, whereby local resources are used. Like any business, it does not stand still in order to survive. You have to move forward, and all the facilities for children were put in place in order that should it rain, the children and families had a place to go. I can only tell you that every time I have visited with friends and families, it has been one big excitement and so difficult to get the children away. It is, in my opinion, a great tourist attraction. And as I found out when speaking to people on those visits, so appreciated a place where children and other members of the family can have quality time together without worrying about their children. And I know that many travel from far away in order to have a day out. One of the things that we have lacked in North Somerset are the startup facilities for new entrepreneurs. And I know for a very long time, I have been pressuring to get something done, because you often find that once starting, as a business grows, they're inclined to stay in the area and not move out because we do not have the facilities for growth at the moment. The applicant has ensured that he has started this sort of scheme with, I believe, 3 people in such a setup, well away and not seen by any of the rest of the park. You will see from the report that there's mention of a children's nursery, and that's been addressed by Simon, being refused on appeal. Mention of walking and cycling was considered to be unlikely and practical because of distance and street lighting and limited formal crossing points. I mention this because my understanding this was refused about 5 years ago, and also because it has been brought to my attention that some members wish to include a cycle and walking area to Weston-super-Mare. I do not think that this is applicable at the moment because we should not expect the applicant to contribute funding, which to me is currently in the air. We have to have a proper discussion with any developer who is developing around the area and to be building around Weston-super-Mare, and I'm sure that the applicant would be happy to contribute when something is set up and all developers are engaged, because that is what we want to see. The park has planning permission for a new children's nursery, which opened in September, has been mentioned, adjacent to the main car park. This is well used, and the facilities that Puxton Park currently have is well used by children and parents, which brings me on to the second development of the barns, as explained by the applicant. They are desperate for more undercover activity for their customers and such have a need for a safe drop-off zone for the children's nursery. Perhaps we could have confirmation that the use of barns for D2, assembly and leisure, and also B8 storage, are they not under the new Class E commercial business and leisure now? This is a company that employs over 100 people on site within the different businesses. Added to those that I've already described, they also have a second restaurant, a butchery and cheese factory, and Weston College Animal Management Centre, with whom they are closely involved. They also have planning permission for a garden centre and on-site accommodation. The area of land where they wish to put the barns and drop-off zone is on hard standing, which they currently use for storing stone and landscape goods. So obviously no ecology assessment is needed. No hedges or trees will be removed. The buildings will be kept away from the hedge and ditch, so there is no impact. But I can see that they have submitted in their landscape plan, and I have to say that I wish other developers would take such care of the rural areas. I want to also stress that the applicant plants 2,000 trees a year and has just ordered 2,000 more for next year. The barns, yes, the old barns were not suitable. One that's classed, and I think the applicant has addressed that, is a dance studio. This is a young girl of 18 who specialises in hip-hop dance, in case anybody doesn't know what that is. I think it's jumping up and down. This is nowhere in the area, there's nowhere in the area that is suitable for this sort of dance. And she approached the applicant, and I think he addressed that she's been around for a little while to see if this is something that could be done. Quite rightly, he did not wish to lose, and neither do we in North Somerset, another entrepreneur to Sedgemoor and other counties further into Somerset. She is an artist and travels the world in competitions. She needs to be supported and encouraged, and I would support that. The gym, yes it is, but not as been explained by the applicant, not the normal kind of gym. They do, as he quite rightly said, mostly outside running in the fields through obstacles, etc. And I know there's another one, or what used to be one in further along by Alvis's on the A38. And I think, in actual fact, it certainly is not something that could be entertained within a town. The storage, I think, has already been addressed. And the building is stated in the report for putting on pantomimes and Halloween and other such things suitable for the ethos of Puxton Park and its future is damp and cold. And many people have said that, sadly, they cannot use it anymore. So something had to be done to deal with this. But my understanding is that, you know, they're going to be using that. And also, I think it's the fourth one, they wish to have as a storage, which is absolutely vitally important, because a lot of equipment is stored in container tanks at the moment, and that will be brought inside to this storage area. They will be brought in, I think it's about 10. And so, in actual fact, if we wish to make a condition that they will be removed, I think the applicant would be quite happy to do that. And so, Chairman, I would like to finish on saying that this is something that we have to diversify, we have to look forward, we have to have a vision, and we have to include those people who have asked that something be done. And in the rural area, and I can only speak from the rural area, this is something that is used from many people in my surrounding area who find it extremely helpful and useful that they don't have to drive into town, as there is such things in town, for entertainment.
Thank you. Simon, do you want to reply to Councillor Harley at this stage?
Thank you, Chairman. I will just come back on one point, but then I'll let other members give comment. This site was a greenfield site. Aerial photograph in 2014 shows it. Has had gravel put down, but that has been more recently. So in our terms, it isn't considered to be a brownfield site, and that's explained in the committee report. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, can I just ask if Simon would confirm my comment about the D2 and is it all under now, and B8, whether it's under the new Class E?
I can confirm that that's correct, Chairman.
Simon, in the report, CS22 refers to maximising travel to the site other than using the private car. In light of electric cars replacing petrol and diesel cars in 2030, is this issue really relevant now?
Well, I think we're being bang up to date, Chairman, with the government's intention to replace new cars in 2030, but I understand from the national press and news that petrol and diesel cars will still be second-hand and still be operated. So yeah. It'll take a long time, I think, before everybody is driving electric cars.
And that means, Chairman, that most of our cars will be useless and we won't get any money back for them.
Michelle.
Yes. Richard Kent has asked to speak, Chairman, and then Councillor Westwood, Solomon, Havison, Bridger, Crew and Bryant.
Sorry, Richard Kent, Westwood, Solomon, and who was next?
Havison.
Yeah.
Bridger. Crew.
Yeah.
And Bryant. Chairman.
Okay. Richard.
Yes, just to add to Simon Exley's point, I just wanted to underline, as I'm sure everybody knows before we get into debate, that planning permission runs with the land. So whilst we talk about different businesses and different potential occupiers of buildings now, obviously the permission is for the use, and that business could move on or it could change format, and you can't guarantee that whoever it is that's been lined up initially will be there in due course. And I thought it's important you just bear that in mind when it comes to discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Westwood.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My initial point was going to be as far as the running through the plans and photos and stuff, because although Simon was saying, and now it's such and such, mine ran out at number 6. So there you go. But they then, after a few minutes, they appeared. So, like I said, it's maybe just a glitch in the technology. One issue that did occur to me when Anne was speaking was that she said that there's no requirement for any biodiversity report, and yet on page 13, issue 7, there's a clear request that the applicant provides a biodiversity report. Which is it, basically? Is it we've just heard that it's not brownfield, so it even though it's been used for storage of stone, it's still presumably open countryside. Is that correct?
Simon.
Thank you. Yes, it's open countryside in terms of planning policy. It's within the area of Puxton Park itself. It's explained in the committee report that if planning unit land may not apply to the whole of that planning unit, but in planning policy terms, it's considered to be an open countryside.
Right. So I hate to say it, Simon, but your not reception as such, but it's very difficult to make out what you're saying. I don't know if the rest of the committee have got that. I think I caught what you're saying, but just to make sure, then we do need, or the applicant will have to provide a biodiversity report for this site.
Well, if members are minded to approve it, then we would ask that conditions are imposed on any approval. And that would matter that members could consider asking for. It's quite a number of planning conditions that we would want if members are minded to approve it, and that would include landscaping and restricting the uses. So certainly something we could take on board.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, thanks very much, Simon.
Councillor Solomon.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Wearing my my sports and leisure and arts and culture hat, I'm inclined to support this application because it's offering things that we're looking to put in place for the future, gyms, dance studios, anything to do with entertainment. I know this is a difficult decision because of the location and having to drive there, etc. But I think there could be things put in place that could help to mitigate that. There's always the possibility of some form of transport being run from the entrance to that site. I mean, that's something that could be put there in the future. As far as flooding is concerned, we had a similar situation with the full court, which we passed. So I think that side of things, and I think the applicant has proven that as far as flooding is concerned, he can certainly mitigate that side of things. The barns, to my mind, look very complementary to the environment. I like the idea of the hip hop dance studio. It's something that Councillor John Leigh Morgan and I would probably use on an extensive basis. The outdoor gym, I'm not sure about. So I think these sort of things, although they're difficult decisions to make because we don't want to encroach on our farming and our green land, in this particular case, I think we've gone against our policies in the past, and this is again something I think from a policy point of view we should go against, and we should support this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Haverson.
Okay. Yes, like Councillor Harley, I recognise the importance of Paxton Park for Weston and the surrounding villages and our tourism industry. Oh, excuse me, my phone is just ringing. I'll just let it ring. Sorry. Good timing.
Well, Councillor Haverson, I'll take the next speaker, then come back to you.
Okay, thank you.
If you want to switch your phone off. Councillor Bridger.
It won't run. It'll stop now. It'll stop. Stopped. It stopped.
Okay.
Please
carry
on. Okay. I'm a frequent visitor myself there when I've got visiting family. But when I looked at this application first, I must say I shared our officer's concern because I felt that the unique rural and farming character of Paxton Park needed to be maintained. Since hearing Mr. Meads and also Councillor Harley's explanations of the activities they propose, then most but not all of these concerns have been cleared up for me. But I have one remaining concern, and that is quite important to me and hopefully to you as well, and it's also our policy, and that's the unavoidable effect of more activities on car travel. Realistically speaking, more and different attractions will inevitably lead to people arriving by car. The bus connection exists, but we've seen that route is quite a long way away, and I'm sure 99% of visitors, if not the staff, will not come by bus. North Somerset Council now has a clear ambition to prioritise walking and cycling over the car. But due to an unfortunate geographical location, not Paxton Park's fault, obviously, the closest local visitors from Weston cannot reach Paxton Park by bike. Hang on. There is currently no safe cycle route to Paxton Park from Weston. Cycling along the A370 via the M5 junction is totally impossible for all but experienced and brave cyclists, certainly not for families. And I've heard of several families who would dearly like to cycle to Paxton Park if that was possible. I'm also thinking of all the new housing developments in Westwick, currently Locking Parklands, and soon any new developments associated with the Banwell bypass will all be the other side of the motorway. So I explored Google Maps and I saw what I thought was a potential cycle route, and I walked it with my dog. It would start from Wolvers Hill Road, just east of the motorway bridge, and end up entering Paxton Park from the eastern end, where the current nursery is located, if you remember, from Ball's Barn Lane, which is the lane running right at the back of those proposed barns. So it would actually enter the site from there. It would essentially unlock access by cycling from Westwick and further along from Well, Weston and Locking Parklands, and further along also from Banwell, and where more new housing developments will be associated with the bypass. All the routes that I've investigated are either already small country lanes, restricted byways or bridleways. However, many sections would need upgrading to be acceptable as a cycle route. At the moment, there is one 300-metre section, which is only grass and mud. Yeah, so even though it's officially a bridleway. So I've discussed or corresponded with all concerned, with Mr. Mead, the planning officer, our sustainable travel team, and the public rights of way officer about the feasibility of such a route. Essentially, all are agreed that this would be a good plan. It might even open another business opportunity for the park as a cycle hub. I'm also told that there are already good connections to Yatton by our sustainable travel team. Such a scheme would certainly be in agreement with our commitment to active travel. Our sustainable travel team have been incredibly successful, and just yesterday we heard that they have managed to secure additional government funding for cycling routes. There has been a huge surge in cycling during the pandemic, and we need to do our best to facilitate and encourage this. Apart from the most thorny issue of funding this, there are two other ones which have been drawn to my attention, and we would need agreement by current landowners to upgrade some paths, and there may be a traffic safety issue of the entry from Wolvers Hill Road, but I don't think that's a major issue because it's a very bumpy bridge and people tend to slow down going over there, otherwise they'd fly off. So I wanted to move an amendment and make this an amendment to the proposal by Councillor Harley, but I've been told that's not possible. But I have had a commitment by Mr. Mead that he would be prepared to work together with our sustainable travel team and other officers and contribute a sum of £5,000 to this. So, but we would have to basically rely on his word to do this. And of course, if the other issues couldn't be resolved, then that would fail. But just to put that into perspective, it has been estimated by our public rights of way officer that to upgrade the whole route to a suitable cycle route would cost about £50,000. So it's considerably more. But I just wanted you to take that consideration into account when making your decision, because I think if that could be incorporated in some future plan, then it would make the whole issue much more favourable in my eyes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bridger.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to make a few points. Obviously, reading the officer report, it partly comes down to a matter of judgment, really, about what leisure uses are deemed ancillary or not ancillary to a rural farm attraction like this. I think with Paxton Park, where we're well beyond the point where we're discussing farm diversification, I think we're obviously talking about a major attraction in our area, for which the applicant is to be congratulated, I have to say. As the applicant mentioned in their opening statement, I think the proposed use is already happening to a degree, and I think as Councillor Harley said at the beginning, they would have done their research. They would have made the business case to themselves. The officer report also references the site, I think, not being well related to the community it's intended to serve, which I think is, is I guess true. But I recall that as recently as July, I think it was, the committee approved an application, also contrary to officer recommendation actually, which was for change of use from an agricultural building to a gym at Gobbles Farm at Wolvers Hill Road. So I mean, probably less than 10 minutes drive actually from this location. I think on if that was July, I think I was the only councillor actually to vote against that, but the committee voted to approve it. So this is not unlike that. Obviously, with that case, we were talking about existing redundant buildings, and this is about extending the built extent of the site with new buildings. But I think to a certain extent the precedent has been set. Just to speak to Councillor Havison's point, I mean, if all parties recognise the desirability of opening up a safe cycling route between the new developments at Westwick and Locking Parklands and so on, and Puxton Park, then yeah, I think if we can take it in good faith that the opportunity will be properly explored, at least, as Councillor Havison said, particularly given the emphasis we're now putting on active travel and modal shift. So, I cannot reasonably, I don't think, support the officer recommendation on this one. So I think I would probably go for supporting approval with some robust conditions along the lines of those that have already been proposed earlier in the discussion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, can I apologise to Councillor Harley? It appears my chat function isn't working, because before she started speaking, I sent a message to say I wish to second. So I apologise to that, Councillor Harley. But I've looked at this in some detail, and my view is it's finely balanced. It could go one way or the other. I believe on balance, it's acceptable. I think we do gain from the fact that we might be able to remove some temporary storage there. And when we look at the teaching studio, yes, it's there for that purpose, but are you saying that we couldn't actually do some displays in there of biodiversity, of how we can improve the environment and how they're working on farm animals at Puxton Park? I think that could be a big bust. When we look at travel, that is always going to be a problem, but we cannot say that because it means it's out of town, it means more cars travelling. That gives a disadvantage to those businesses where in town it could be done, out of town it couldn't. Give you an example. At Congsbury, until fairly recently, there was a dance studio which did tap dancing every Saturday. A few years ago, my daughter was involved in that. There were 60 vehicles travelled out of Weston to Congsbury every Saturday morning for those dances. So we are in that situation. We are on the Healthy Highways working group, which I'm on, looking at ways how we can improve the cycleways. That one is a difficult one, but we've just received monies from the government for doing other cycleways that we've had difficulty with. So that's not beyond the realms of possibility, but I don't think, in fairness to an applicant, that we could use that as a fair reason to say no, although I accept we need to look at ways we can improve it. When we look at the flooding situation, well, we do recall it, aside from the one we approved further up the road, that of course we did have a problem in Hewish for some flooding a few years back, where it was down to a drain under the highways blocked. And we had a long debate who was going to pay to get the drain sorted out. So we do know there's a possibility of that, but I don't think on balance, any of those reasons is reasons not to go with accepting this application. And as I was quite happy to second Anne in that route. I think it's a good plan. I think it should go forward. Yes, you need conditions. Obviously, you need conditions. But I think you'll find a lot of those conditions you're talking of, when you look into it, it's probably already been met.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman.
Councillor Bryant.
I do apologise, Chairman. Can you hear me?
I can.
Good. Chairman, I will be as brief as possible. Puxton Park has progressively grown over the years and is now accepted as a successful business, encompassing a whole raft of interesting and social outlets for persons of all ages. If we put our thinking caps on for one moment, normal planning applications are invariably limited or indeed curtailed because of its effect on near residents. There are no near residents to these properties, these intended properties, with this proposal. Finally, we must realise that we are in the middle of a national / world catastrophe, and many businesses are destined to fail. We in North Somerset must do everything in our power to encompass developments of all kinds and different potential businesses. I fully support this proposal, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Can I just, Michelle?
I was going to say there's three further councillors what would like to comment on this. It's Councillor Cherry, Payne and Crockford Hawley.
And can I just check if the Vice Chairman wishes to make comment? Councillor Morgan. Lee Morgan.
Not at the moment, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Cherry.
Thank you very much. Actually, Karen Havison actually dealt with many of the points that I was concerned about. I just wanted to clarify again, is there actually a public bus route which is close to this site which can be used? Because I thought there was. I thought I came across that. So I thought surely, you know, that's another thing which we should also recognise. And I do think that during COVID, people are showing an appetite for walking far more than they used to. So I think if there's any way that people can get there, they will try and get there. And because of the nature of this site and the design of the buildings, they could be much more open. This might be something that will work better in future if we have any more pandemics. And we won't be having perhaps old-fashioned gyms. We might have to have open buildings like this. Anyway, I'm generally speaking, I think the social and economic impacts of this development are generally beneficial and override the concerns that we have about this development being built where it is. Thank you.
Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Chairman. Puxton Park is for sure is a great attraction. It's very popular and it's important to our local economy, and there's no doubt about that. My family visit it regularly and they enjoy it. But I don't think any of that is any reason to overlook the clear planning policies we've got. The M69 is clear. The location doesn't relate to the community it serves. The policy is there for very good reason. It's to prevent urban sprawl, protect the countryside and the biodiversity that it supports. And it's to reduce the reliance on the use of cars. A new cycleway would be great if that could be brought on. But I think either way, it's clear to me that very few people would use this facility by any other means than going there by private car. So I'm very much supporting of the officer's recommendation, and I can't agree with Councillor Harley on this. Thank you.
Councillor Crawford Hawley.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we're getting rather at sixes and sevens over this. It strikes me as really a very simple issue. Are we dealing with an application which is ancillary to the rural farm location and is about farming diversification? Or are we dealing with something which is to improve the quality and the diversity of the tourist offer? If it's the former, then I can see no other option than refusal for this application. If it's the latter,
then I can see no other reason than approval of the application. But if we go for the latter, we have to be mindful of the fact that we are making planning policy on the hoof rather than accepting policies which we have put in place in the past. And one of the great problems with all planning policies is that we will all face occasions when we don't actually like those particular planning policies, and we might want to vote against them. But if we do vote against them, we weaken those planning policies. And so if we are to vote in favour of this application, we must be aware that we are weakening our planning policies. That is not the way we should be operating. We're doing it the wrong way round. Having said that, I can see many reasons for supporting this application. And as Peter Crew said, I can see equally as many reasons for not supporting it. But it just comes down to that one basic element. Is it about rural farm attractions and associated diversification, or is it about improving a tourist offer which has absolutely nothing to do with that rural location? That is what we've got to decide.
Simon.
Chairman, Richard Kent has asked to speak, and then Councillor Westwood.
Richard.
Chairman, it's just before Simon comes back in, a couple of points. One, of course, is that if Councillor Harley's motion is to go to the vote, or when it goes to the vote, we will need to understand what conditions are being proposed. But secondly, just following up on some what's been said, and clearly we do have to make decisions in accordance with our current adopted local plan. And as has been pointed out by a couple of speakers, there are some quite clear policies which deal with the proposals in front of us, and that's set out in detail in the report. But in that sort of more general, wider sense, and some of the debate that's been going on in the context of the new forthcoming local plan about climate change, then locational policies, building in floodplains, building attractors of people in places where they can only get there by car, doesn't sit comfortably with the council's emerging thinking on climate change control, and I think that is referenced in the report, and I think that is something for you to bear in mind in your consideration. Simon, is there something to add?
Thank you, Richard. Yes, one of the points Councillor Cherry made about bus stops. The nearest bus stops are on the A370 near the entrance to the site. I think it's the X1 stops along at those bus stops. But in the report, it's on page 9 under the sustainable location, that those bus stops and the A370 is some 700 metres away from the entrance building itself. So, anybody using the bus stops have to then walk along the entrance drive to get to the main buildings. What I was also going to say in terms of Councillor Havison and contributions, that if members feel that planning permission should be granted with a contribution, then a contribution would have to be paid by a way of a Section 106 legal agreement. There is a simple one called a unilateral undertaking, where the applicant can provide the money to the council to pay towards that identified need for cycleway. But as you heard from Councillor Havison, the applicant has suggested £5,000. The estimate of the cost of the whole route would be some £50,000. But if members are to support contribution, then that would need a legal agreement with the recommendation. If members want to discuss conditions, I can just give them a running short list without reading all the wording of ones that would suggest. I've written a couple that I've picked up from the debate. They would be the standard 3-year time limit, an approved list of the plans to limit the use that we've approving. That's because the Class E allows all kinds of uses, And if members are saying they're supporting the particular uses of these gyms, then we would need them restricted. Just to let members know, if you don't restrict the uses under the new Class E, they could then be used open as shops and unrestricted. Condition 4 would be hours of use that would match the hours of Puxton Park that restricted. The materials to be approved, finished floor levels, flood resilient design, prevention of pollution to the water environment, flood warning and evacuation plan, surface water drainage details, surface water drainage implementation, protect fencing edge, landscaping scheme, restriction on external lighting, parking, cycle parking, inclusive access and disabled parking, BREEAM to the quality good standard. And the ones raised by members this afternoon are the removal of the storage containers and the condition requiring some biodiversity. Thank you, Chairman.
Michelle, anybody else waiting?
Councillor Richard Westwood, Chairman.
Councillor Westwood.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, this is an interesting one, isn't it? I think, as is clear, we would be kidding ourselves if we thought that the vast majority of the people who were using this site were going to arrive by anything other than motor vehicle, basically. The proviso there, of course, is that as we move on, those motor vehicles will become increasingly less offensive, in that they won't be polluting in the same way that most of them are at the moment. It would be lovely to pick up the idea of having a cycle route there, but that is something very clearly for the future. I would certainly support if we can get an assurance from the applicant that they would be wanting to put some money into that scheme. But we're faced basically with approving or not approving what is on or in front of us today. Just picking up on what Simon said about the conditions, we can tie them down to using the buildings for what they say they're going to be used for. It did strike me looking at them; they do look like barns, don't they? Which is what they're intended to look like. And if the diversity of the farming had gone towards, I don't know, raising poultry, I doubt very much if we'd be sitting here discussing it. It would have been decided or not on the basis of an agricultural use, and it would look pretty much the same from where anybody stood outside of it. As I said earlier, my concern is that this isn't a brownfield site, as Councillor Harley pretty much said. It is at the moment part of the open countryside, and I would very much like the conditions certainly to include a full biodiversity set of conditions, and making sure that that there is a report done by the applicant as far as what they intend to do to make sure that the site is, or the wildlife and flora on the site is actually protected. There you go. But I must admit I'm moving towards supporting this.
Thank you. Michelle, Councillor Leigh Morgan.
Thank you, Chairman. I found this a very, very difficult issue. I mean, my tendency is always perhaps to support the officers' recommendations because they're the experts and I'm not. But now and again, you have to follow your heart with these things. And I think that the application has a lot of merit, offering activities which are not available anywhere else. I think that the idea that people are going to flood into Weston if we were able to transport Buxton Park to somewhere in the town, it just wouldn't be a success because Weston doesn't have the parking facilities. It doesn't have the room, and of course, it would usage would probably be restricted to Westonians. I think that I agree very much with what Richard has just said about the future of cars, so that travelling to and from Puxton Park will be an increasingly friendly activity. I think that cycling will in the future still be a minority mode of transport. There's all sorts of things that mitigate against cycling with regards to people's age and particularly weather. I mean, nobody's going to cycle anywhere if it's pouring down with rain. They're going to get their car out. I'm sure that most people will still have a car. I think if we were to draw a large circle around Puxton Park, which incorporated all of Weston, you would see just how many people are living on the north side, or the east side, on the east side of that circle. So, and those are people who are not going to be coming into Weston in any great numbers for the reasons that I've mentioned just now. So, despite my usual wishes to support officers as far as I can, I think on this occasion, and I was seriously thinking of abstaining, but I think that I would support the application for the reasons I've just stated.
Thank you. Michelle, any more speakers?
Councillor Haverson would like to speak then.
Councillor Haverson.
Thank you. Can I just clarify, the BREEAM standard was mentioned, and if I remember correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the BREEAM standard that the paper stated was very good, not good, as the officer just mentioned. Can we just clarify that? Then I've got a couple of other comments in terms of cycling being a minority activity and weather dependent. I can just point to our near neighbour across the channel, the Netherlands, with completely the same weather, wind, rain. I've cycled there, so I know. And they have 30% of their journeys are made by bike. So that is what the average population could achieve. And in the UK, it's 2%. So we have a huge way to go. And I think we need to really try and up our game on that. There was this, oh yes, and then the actual conditions. I would support this application if we could have an S106 agreement on the contribution that Mr. Mead has mentioned. Otherwise, I don't think I could support it. Thank you.
Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the BREEAM condition would be a very good standard. So I apologise if I missed the word out, a critical word. But as Councillor Haverton said, if members are going to allow it and are or do require the contribution, then that would have to be, the approval would have to be subject to a Section 106 agreement for the contribution, and then subject to the conditions.
Okay. Michelle, any other speakers?
No other speakers, Chairman.
Councillor Harley, do you wish to sum up?
Thank you, Chairman. I've been listening very carefully to all of this, and I hate to disagree with my fellow councillor, but, you know, I just want to try and picture that we're not living in Holland and we have a different culture in England, and we have to go with what we've got. We have to grow with it. And I think, you know, to sort of try and impose situations or conditions on people, we have to be very careful what we do. We're a long way away to getting what we would call the ideal world. We're dealing with what we've got to deal with now. We're all taking account of climate change and all it entails. And I think, you know, that's what we should be doing. Now, I hate to see Councillor Crockford-Hawley slightly confused. It worries me because, oh, that's a smile on his face now. That's good. But I think at the end of the day, Chairman, this is an application, and I've heard all that's been going on. And he did mention about the farming, etc., etc. What we've got to remember here as well is that is still going on, and I think we've also got to remember that Western College animal management courses are very involved with Paxton Park, and that is the future. I think that's an encouragement, and I think these people and what is going on at the park is extremely, and I don't know if anybody's visited and walked it, but the amount of work that's been done and the actual understanding of the countryside and the rural areas has been, in my case, and I'm going to actually possibly get a laugh from you all, because when I went down there the last time, so much had been done. I almost felt like Judy Garland and Over the Rainbow and walking the yellow brick road. It was beautifully done. I would question, here we are on one hand saying about the bus service and having to get off at the beginning of Paxton Park, and what I thought somebody said walking 700 metres, and then we're turning around and saying, well, we must walk more and we must cycle more. So where are we going? You know, what are we trying to say? I'm getting totally confused with it. But I would say to you, Chairman, in summing up, that I would obviously support approval. I personally feel, looking at policy DM69, that it does conform with most of those issues in DM69. It does comply with CS22 with tourist attraction, and we've got a mixed use there, which I think is highly important. I might say, actually, and being a farmer's daughter, and the changes that I've seen in farming, in less than probably 15 years, we're not going to see farms as we see now. We're not going to even see cows in the field or anything like that. They will be gone. And so, you know, we have got to protect that side of it as well. And it might be a mixed use. It's going to be a mixed use. So, I you know, CS22, and I think as far as I can also see, Chairman, CS33, I think it complies with that. Yes, I agree that the policies are, the guidelines and the policies are probably don't fit into all of it, but then that's what we've got at the moment. And when we make our planning decisions and when we start our new planning as we are now, we've got to take into account what may be changes in the future, but none of us have got a crystal ball. So I would support that. I would also say about the conditions, Chairman, if I may, that obviously I think most of it is being covered in the application, and I understand that from what you've said, or what has been said that by Simon, that a 106 agreement will be reached with the applicant for, I think you said £5,000. Something like that. Now, yes, okay, that's fine. But as far as I'm concerned, Chairman, my summing up is that it's covered those policies that I've said, and it's absolutely a need in the area. And I would have to say to you, because I've been, you know, that water's been Paxton Park has been, I've been involved with a long time. And the thing is, what that applicant does, he always goes and speaks to the planning officers with what his future vision is. And that is the important thing. We've got time to then look at it and say, well, no, that isn't acceptable. That isn't acceptable. So I think that we really do need to try and understand, however difficult it is, that, you know, these people have to survive. They have to move on. They have to incorporate different things which may not be necessarily acceptable by us, but it's a need that the public want. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Harley.
Chairman, Richard Kent has asked to speak.
Okay, Richard, quickly.
Chairman, yes, just before the vote, just to be clear, as I understand it, Councillor Harley is moving the conditions as listed by Simon Exley.
Yes.
And I think,
except, sorry, Richard, I've seen different conditions. I want to be very careful that some of those conditions, there was two that I was a little bit concerned about. I think one of them, if I might say, was on the landscaping. Because I think that's been done, and the landscaping there is pretty good. But it was also the new one that's come in. Number 18, was it, Simon?
So, Chairman, I'm not quite sure what's been referred to, and I'll ask Simon to just recap in a moment. But the one thing that I'm slightly concerned about is I'm not sure what we're saying about Section 106 agreements, because that is not part of the proposal, as I understand it.
Sorry,
if there was a requirement for a financial contribution towards off-site bridleway or transport connections, then we need to take it away. But I don't think that's what Councillor. So it's just moving approval with the conditions as recommended, and Simon is going to just run through those before we vote.
Yeah. So Simon might address the one that I've just mentioned. Thank you,
Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. The conditions that I read through before are. And these are just the headlines for the conditions, not all wording, but a standard 3-year time limit condition, the approved plans list, the limit to the use as approved, hours of use, the materials as approved, the finished floor levels, the flood resilient design, prevention of pollution of the water environment, flood warning and evacuation plan, surface water drainage details, surface water drainage implementation and maintenance, protective fencing to the hedge, a landscaping scheme, restriction on external lighting, parking, cycle parking, inclusive access and disabled parking, BREEAM very good standard, and the two from the members, which would be 19 removal of storage containers and 20 biodiversity conditions. I was also going to suggest, Chairman, obviously that's quite a lot of conditions, 20 in all. If members are happy, then we would look at that, and if it's subject to agreement with the Chairman and Vice Chairman and Councillor Harley and Haverton, then we could allow those parties to do the exacting of those conditions.
Yeah. Chairman, can I just ask Simon? Excuse me. I know. That's why I said there's some of them that have already been done, because I would have suggested that anything to do with the flooding had already been submitted and taken into account. This BREEAM one, which is a new one, I'm not too sure. Are we going to speak to the applicant about that because of the implications it may have?
Chairman, I think Simon Exley was saying that the conditions will be subject to agreement with the Chairman, Vice Chairman and the ward members. And I think that would be the opportunity for you to work through the detail of that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yes. Okay.
So we have a proposal to approve the application. Sue, please conduct the roll call vote.
Thank you, Chairman. The motion is for approval, subject to.
I can hardly hear. Sorry, I can't hear very well.
Sorry, is that better?
Slightly.
Yes, that's better.
Sorry, councillors. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
The motion is for approval subject to the conditions being agreed by the Chair and Vice Chairman and ward members. When I say for, it will be for approval, against approval and abstention. I'm now going to take the vote from each councillor in alphabetical order, and for each vote taken, the councillor will be confirming that they have heard the whole of the debate. Councillor Bridger.
For.
Councillor Bryant.
For.
Councillor Cherry.
For.
Councillor Cole.
For.
Councillor Crew.
For.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley.
Against.
Councillor Cronolly.
For.
Councillor Harley.
For.
Councillor Haverson.
Abstain.
Councillor Leigh Morgan.
He's gone.
You said 4.
No, he's muted.
4.
So is that Councillor Leigh Morgan?
Yeah.
4, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Payne?
Against.
Councillor Solomon?
4.
Councillor Westwood?
4.
Chairman, that's carried 10 for, 2 against and 1 abstention.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7, quarter 2 performance. Richard.
Thanks, Chairman. You've got a full report which sets out the details. Just a few things to flag up. The teams are very busy. There's a lot of work going on in the office, in the virtual office to deliver the council's priorities. And you'll see in particular that we've noticed just in the last couple of weeks a spike in planning applications, which is something that we'll be testing this over the next few months. You'll also see that we've had a busy period with planning enforcement, and that remains an area where the team are extremely stretched, and particularly as a member of the team has been out of circulation for sickness reasons. So I won't go on any further because I appreciate we've got another meeting shortly, but if you do have any questions, then please don't hesitate to ask.
Michelle, anybody in chats?
No questions in chat, Chairman.
Item 8, planning appeals. Richard.
Chairman, again, nothing to add to the report. Again, you'll see that we've had a succession of good appeal decisions, a number of appeals dismissed. In terms of appeals received, you may be interested to see that we've had an appeal lodged for the site out at Rington that was refused by the committee. Just trying to recall the Cinderford Cottage at Rovers Lane. So that appeal is now in, and the ward member, Councillor Hogg, has been involved in putting together the council's appeal statement on that.
Okay. Michelle, any comments?
Councillor Crockford-Hawley would like to comment, Chairman.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley.
Thank you, Chairman. There are 2 appeals in Weston which interest me, both to do with timber garden fences that have been erected on the against the public highway, contrary to planning consent. One at 7 Eastcombe Park and one at 37 Arundel Road. On appeal, the Eastcombe Park one was allowed, but the Arundel Road one dismissed. Could the officers help me understand the reason for the different decisions by the inspectorate?
Yes, I think I can. I think that the difference was there were 2 elements. One was in the one that was dismissed as the inspector considered that the fence hadn't been there for more than 4 years and was very prominent and adversely affected the appearance of the area. But the one that was allowed, the inspector considered a different character to that area. Might have been a fence there before, but he thought that there were buildings close to the road and this fence wouldn't appear to be unacceptable in terms of the street scene.
Thank you.
Michelle, anybody else?
Councillor Bridger would like to speak, Chairman.
Councillor Bridger.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one for Richard. Richard refers to housing completions looking as if they might be slightly up. I think the last figures I have were for 2018-19. I think there were 729 completions, obviously quite a long way below what we need house builders to deliver, which I think is 1,369 or something. So is it looking, presumably it's looking just a little bit up, Richard? Is it from 729 or is it considerably up on that?
I don't have the figure to hand, Councillor Bridger, but we have just today published an update on the website of our housing supply assessment and housing delivery, and our housing supply figure is 4.2 years at the moment, so we are still some way short of the 5-year supply. Clearly, with the new local plan coming forward, that gives us the opportunity to identify more sites, but we are still in a challenging situation. Obviously, as you'll know, and you'll see from the list of appeals in the performance report, a 5-year supply doesn't make a bad site a good site, but it will put pressure on the marginal sites, and particularly those around the villages. And one thing we do need to be mindful, we need to make sure that we can deliver on the sites that are allocated. If we start to struggle on the sites which are allocated, then that really will put pressure on the unallocated sites, and where speculative development will be harder to resist.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Chair.
Michelle.
And Councillor Crew would like to speak as well, Chairman.
Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Chairman. Just following on that point, are we getting to the point now where so many things have changed this year with people working from home, which could turn out to be many people working from home more permanently, which lessens the need for offices and so on? Isn't it time to maybe revisit some of our sites that we have allocated for business to whether they need to be changed to housing?
So, Chairman, that is a good point. That's something we are looking at as part of the forthcoming local plan. And it's something the government is encouraging us to look at through some various changes to the planning system, partly in response to COVID, to encourage the reuse, regeneration, redevelopment of existing employment sites, and also to allow extension of existing buildings upwards to create dwellings. So that's very much where current thinking is. But in the meantime, each application has to be dealt with on its own merits, and one person's brownfield site is another person's employment site. We've just been talking about with the planning application we had today as to whether there were suitable sites for those sorts of uses within towns. And part of the argument might be that if you've got disused employment sites within a town location, that it would be better that those went to commercial uses than sit derelict. But that's part of the debate that we'll be having in the forthcoming period.
Michelle.
No other comments in chat, Chairman.
Item 9, no urgent business. Declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.